Lawmakers in New York are desperately trying to fix their state eviction moratorium after the Supreme Court destroyed it. And meanwhile, landlords are threatening to sue if they do fix it. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have some interesting updates to a story out of New York that I reported on just a little while ago. Basically, the Supreme Court, right before they ended the CDC's eviction moratorium, they made a decision on the New York State eviction moratorium and found that it was unlawful as well, or at least part of it. And they ripped it up, they destroyed it. And it's made it so that evictions actually could possibly occur in the state of New York. So right now, lawmakers up in New York State are trying to fix the problem that the Supreme Court pointed out and trying to create a workaround to it. And of course, landlords are not happy about that. But before I get into the articles, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think of all of this mess going on up in New York, okay? I mean, this state will not let the eviction moratorium issue die. They just want to just drag it out, and they could possibly destroy landlords while they're trying to do this, and they don't even think about what we're going through. So the first article I have for you today, it's coming from WSKG.org, and it says how New York lawmakers would have to fix the eviction moratorium. With New York's eviction moratorium set to expire Tuesday, members of the state legislature are considering a return to Albany to extend that relief. But it's not as simple as coming back to pass an extension. Governor Kathy Hochul confirmed in a statement that she's in talks with leaders from the legislature on a potential special session to address the deadline, particularly after the federal eviction moratorium was struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court this week. I am in talks with the Senate Majority Leader and Assembly Speaker to call a special session to address the impending eviction crisis, given the Supreme Court's decision, Hochul said. Yeah, so after the CDC's eviction moratorium was cut down, and knowing that they had problems with the state eviction moratorium that was also destroyed by the Supreme Court. Now they're sitting there and they're like, oh, we have to do something. We have to throw a new eviction moratorium in there, and they're going to try to somehow circumvent the rules that were put into place by the Supreme Court and create a new eviction moratorium, which is going to be an absolute nightmare for landlords. I mean, I expected something like this from a very tenant-friendly state, but I mean, they've basically already received a double smackdown from the Supreme Court. So yeah, I'm hoping that whatever they try to do, it doesn't happen. If they return to Albany to address the problem, Democrats, who control both chambers of the state legislature, would have to grapple with a separate decision from the court this month that struck down part of the state's eviction moratorium, which is independent of the now ended federal moratorium. That case was brought by a handful of landlords from New York who argued that they'd been denied due process by the state's eviction moratorium because they had to accept claims of a tenant's financial hardship blindly without proof. While earlier versions of New York's eviction moratorium were enacted by former Governor Andrew Cuomo during the COVID-19 pandemic, the most recent iteration was included in a bill approved by the state legislature this year. Yeah, they basically let the tenant be the one who attested to their financial hardship that they were supposedly going through, and they didn't have to provide any proof or evidence that they were actually going through a financial hardship. And not only that, they didn't give the landlords any way to dispute it. So yeah, it was completely ridiculous. You just fill out a sheet of paper, say you're going through some hardship, and then nobody can evict you ever. That's not the way the thing should ever have been done, okay? I mean, I don't believe in eviction moratoriums at all, but if you are going to put one in place and then give the landlord no means to, to force the tenant to prove that they're actually going through a hardship, then it's going to be a lot of abuse in that sort of system. The law has allowed tenants to avoid eviction by filing a financial hardship form provided by the state to either their landlord or to the court if a proceeding has already started. The landlords argued that the process didn't give them an opportunity to question a tenant's financial hardship. particularly, excuse me, particularly since New York declared the COVID disaster over in June. The Supreme Court sided with them in an unsigned order. Yeah, so the state of New York declared the financial or declared the COVID disaster over in June, yet they still weren't able to evict tenants. So that was kind of like they were talking out of both sides of their mouth. And yeah, the hardship form was a joke. The Supreme Court basically said the way the process has been set up, there's nowhere in the process where a landlord can say that's not true, said Christine Quinn, the former Speaker of the New York City Council, who now runs homeless services provider WIN. Quinn, speaking on New York Now, said the legislator would have to amend the law to conform to the Supreme Court's ruling. And that's what they're going to be trying to do, okay? They're going to try to, bend it around and like, oh, yeah, now, to do a workaround and then reimpose a new eviction moratorium. And that's going to be bad for landlords if they're unable to get these tenants out of their properties. But, I mean, the way the Supreme Court has it worded, it's going to be pretty hard to put back into place. So let's see what it says. Basically, lawmakers would have to provide a mechanism that would allow landlords to appear in court and try to rebut their tenants' claims of financial hardship. Then it would be up to the court to decide on eviction rather than a presumptive safety net. Yeah, I mean, so basically they would have to go to eviction court and then the tenant would have to prove that they actually are facing financial hardship. And simply put, a lot of tenants don't go to court for any eviction type proceeding. So a lot of landlords would just automatically win, even if they did rewrite it to do that. So that would actually probably not be a terrible deal. But yeah, I'm not surprised that they're trying to renew their, create a new eviction moratorium up in New York State. But already the landlords they're all over it. Okay, they're not hearing it, and I'm glad to hear about this lawsuit here in this second story. So this comes from rewonline.com, and it says New York landlords threaten to sue if Albany fights court eviction ruling. All right, let's get into it. New York landlords are urging politicians not to force through new legislation that sidesteps the Supreme Court's ruling that has blocked the government from extending the federal eviction moratorium. The Rent Stabilization Association, New York's largest organization of building owners, are threatening to sue the Albany state legislature if it attempts to defy the Supreme Court of the U.S. decision. If New York state lawmakers enact legislation that disregards and attempts to circumvent the decision by SCOTUS, we will immediately take legal action, this time asking for damages, said Joseph Strasburg, president of the Rent Stabilization Association, which along with 5 individual landlords challenged the state's eviction ban and won in a decision rendered by the U.S. Supreme Court on August 12th. Yeah, they should have asked for damages the first time, okay? Because simply put, that's the only way that you can get it through these politicians' thick skull is when they're paying out millions of dollars of lost rent to these landlords. That's the only way you can get it through their skull that, hey, maybe these eviction moratoriums aren't a good idea. You start hitting the pocketbook, okay? And that they deserve to get paid back all the money that they lost due to these eviction moratoriums, okay? So I don't like the fact they're only threatening. I mean, I think they should have already sued for damages, but whatever it takes, they need to put pressure on these politicians. Make no mistake, we will challenge any attempt by lawmakers to legislate an eviction moratorium that is contrary to the SCOTUS decision. Governor Kathy Hochul has said she is meeting with leaders from the legislature on a potential special session to address the end of the eviction moratorium tomorrow. And that's Tuesday, which, the day I'm recording this, it's a Monday, so that'll be tomorrow. With a view to extending the relief. However, Strasburg said desperate tenants and landlords don't need a special legislative session. They need Albany to get the billions of dollars from the federally funded Emergency Rental Assistance Program out the door. Yesterday, last week, 2 months ago, said the RSA leader. Everyone in Albany claims they're laser focused on this task, yet they continue to bog down the process in politics, once again kicking the can down the road instead of putting rent relief money into the hands of hundreds of thousands of desperate New Yorkers. The mass eviction hysteria narrative would be eliminated and tenants would be protected in their homes if state government was doing its job. And he has a very good point right there, okay? So the best thing that any lawmaker and politician could be doing to help the tenants stay in their homes and not get evicted would be to get money to the landlords, okay? Now, I know not all landlords or not all landlords and all tenants are going to qualify for this emergency rental assistance program, but for the ones who do, they'd be able to keep those tenants in the properties, okay? And that's what these people claim to want. Yet rather than trying to hurry up and get the legislative process or the bureaucratic process moving and get that money into the landlord's hands, they're sitting there like, no, we just want to stop evictions. Listen, you can keep these people from getting evicted if you push that emergency rental assistance money to the landlords. That's the best way to do this, not going with more ridiculous moratoriums, okay? In the bureaucracy, get the money to the landlords, and the tenants get to stay in the properties. It's pretty simple. So glad to hear about this lawsuit, or the threat of a lawsuit from this landlord group. But man, let's hope that New York landlords can survive, until they're finally able to get rid of these bad tenants.